Asteroid of fear.
TGIF, and welcome to another episode of the Men of the House podcast, and it is Unfiltered Friday. And why are you here? I don't mean here at the podcast, I mean here on Earth. What is your purpose? What is the purpose of life? Well, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about my conclusions, or kind of what I've come to. But nonetheless, this is meant to give you some food for thought. Oh, and how thoughtful it's going to be. So, if you guys listened to the last Unfiltered Friday, I believe I told you I was reading The Purpose Driven Life over there, pointing to it for the listener only. Um, yeah, so I went to a Christian bookstore a couple weeks ago. I needed a new devotional, got me one Stronger Every Day for Men, and then picked up The Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren. And I think I'm on like day 9, roughly. But it's pretty good. So essentially, you're reading like a chapter a day for 40 days. And then it gives you some questions, some scripture, and usually like about a 45-minute video each day. And so, yeah, I've been pondering, what is your purpose? Why are we here? I'm going to ask you to ponder the same. I mean, I've been asking this question, wow, ever since I can remember, since I was a kid. It kind of, I want you to think back. Think back and when they're like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? Ask yourself that. Go back and remember, what did you want to be when you grew up and why? I mean, I had ideas. You have to think about what drives us and, also wondering kind of, I mean, when was the first time you connected, what do I want to be when I grow up with what's the purpose in life? And then what's my purpose? Because I think their ideas and very specific. I don't know how you look at them, but I'm going to give you an idea about how I look at it and kind of what I've come to the conclusion of somewhat. But making sure I'm recording here. Wet my whistle. But why are you here? What is your purpose? I'm certain I asked that as a kid, growing up, points in my life where I'm trying to decide, what do I want to be versus like what do my parents want me to be? Um, and then, you kind of intertwine, interweave, confuse, I think, as a young person, what you want to be with your identity, your purpose. All those things can get kind of confusing and wrapped up into one. And for me, I was able to first kind of start sorting that out maybe 3 years ago, maybe two, still sorting it out, if I'm honest. But it's just kind of one of those things where each step along the way, the older I get, things that happen in life, the way I come to interpret and understand them, it's still kind of a question. I mean, I've narrowed it down, and I'll give you an idea about that. Yeah, but I wouldn't have gotten the book if maybe I didn't feel that way. But why? I don't know. Like, we grow up and it's what do you want to be? What did I want to be? Well, I knew I wanted to be in the military, and then I kind of wanted to retire and maybe join a federal agency. That was very much my wheelhouse and desire. Oh, gotta scratch the back here. And so, hmm, how to explain this? Similarly, when I was in healthcare, like, what do you want to be? Oh, I want to be in healthcare. Well, my purpose was to serve. Military was kind of the same way, to serve others. And that's kind of a big general purpose. And it's kind of hard to differentiate to serve and how you're going to do it. And that's kind of where the confusion came in for me was, my identity was very much wrapped in to healthcare. Um, that's what I did for 12 to 15 years. And I used to always say that it's not what we do, it's kind of who we are. We care for people. Um, Even if we weren't in a medical setting, we would be caring for people because it's kind of naturally who we are. But of course, when I got laid off, I had to contend with that. Well, if that's who you are, and this company no longer wants your services, what does that mean about you? Does it mean you're not good enough? You're not worthy? We all know it was during the pandemic, so we know it was a business decision. But that's not how it felt. But through a lot of, unfortunately, drinking, which is why I stopped, but sifting through the ashes of an identity that was torched, basically, you know, I learned kind of the through line of my life was, hey, I'm a kind, caring, compassionate person. Service, helping others, that's how I choose to carry out um, that identity, I guess. So for me, I've always felt like my purpose was to serve. And or make a difference, add value. You can still say I'm trying to do the same thing, but how I'm doing it is different, which I've explained in a bunch of other episodes. And if you've missed them, you can access the vault for $5 a month. I can assure you it's worth it. I'm sure there's some information in there of that's worth $5, even if it's what not to do. Oh, but yeah, it's so I've even like even when I Uber, I consider it service. So in a way, I still think like my purpose is to serve. But as I'm reading the book, The Purpose Driven Life, which I'm not 100%, I'm not finished, so I couldn't say with certainty, but what I'm gathering is kind of the purpose is to worship. I mean, to be thankful, to, well, on the basis of religion, you accept Jesus, you believe that he was the Son of God and died for our sins, and that there will be a return one day. That's the Christian belief. And part of practicing Christianity is worship, worship and praise, be grateful and thankful. And kind of what I'm learning to understand through the text is, well, and my own understanding of kind of religion and faith is that, by you accepting Christ and wanting to be faithful and live a Christian life, that you're you're modeling God's love for one another, for each other. And so I guess service is naturally a part of that. Service isn't the real purpose, but, worshiping Christ, being an example, um, I guess how you carry yourself. Um, when people go, "Oh, why is he so happy?" or "Why is he like that?" or "Why does he not get rattled?" Even though people get rattled, they just have a faith and comfort in knowing their faith brings them comfort, I should say. And so they have that faith that everything's going to be okay. And so when someone looks at that and they're like, "Oh, why are they so chipper, so bubbly?" And the answer is because of Jesus, because of faith. And that display opens the door to introduce said person to faith if they don't have any or they're unaware of it. But essentially, being the example like Jesus was, you're to live, you know, but you're not going to be perfect. You're going to sin. But if you try hard, well, let me take that back. Say if your intentions are pure of heart, you're not necessarily trying. Your being is an outward reflection of your faith, your beliefs. And the purpose is to fellowship and share with other Christians or introduce non Christians. Because if the idea is the time here on earth is temporary and you're going to live in eternity, then what are we doing here? Why would we be here? Some might say for the experience. Some might say to learn lessons. Some of what I'm gathering from the book is, hey, it's the dress rehearsal for the big show. You're gathering up skills and whatever it is that you're going to be doing in heaven, your purpose. And so, yeah, that's kind of when you think about it and you understand it, like for me, as it relates to me and my faith and my journey and my story, um, it's comforting to feel. Um, Let me explain it to this way. I feel like of all the things I've done, all the different experiences I've gained, everything that's kind of led me here, this point in time, talking to you virtually, this technology. You have like people who do like math, science, tech, engineering, people build buildings, people do all this stuff to make technology better, to improve our qualities of life. There's people in the science and medical industries that help us live longer, prevent disease, improve quality of life. So you're always going to have people like that. They take on, this is their interest. This is God's blessing gift to them is, and we need these people because it enhances the experience, I guess, if you will. And then there are more philosophical people. You have preachers. You have what I call it is kind of like an orator, um, meaning we have life going on all around us right now. I do interviews. I do solo stuff, recording these times in history. It's a bit like the people who took down the stories, told the stories of the Bible, told the stories of Jesus. We're recording history, literally. And so, I'm coming to learn with my skills, my gifts, my heart, my desires. I feel like maybe like to be a bridge, um, a communicator, a bridge through communication, whether you're bridging people, genders, cultures, generations, you know, would it be transcribing information or somebody correct me in the comments? I know you will. Um, but yeah, taking information, understanding stories, recording them, putting ideas out there into the ether of making a better world. How do we do it? Setting up the context of what's going on in the world, almost just like the Bible. And so I'm coming to learn that maybe that's a bit of my purpose, my role. But all the other things, kind of tie into it. I mean, I was at the park the other day for a walk, and one of my old associates I used to manage was at the park. And I didn't recognize her at first. And she's like, "Oh, do you remember me?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, absolutely. I 100% know who she is." And she follows me on Facebook. I follow her too. But, she retired, but, she had a daughter who's had some health issues after having like some legal issues, say like serving time and then getting out and getting cancer. And so, she has in turn adopted her granddaughter, um, and is having to take care of her daughter. And she's retired, and it's hard, and I could tell. And, just being able to be there at that moment in time where she could express some things to me and I could potentially offer her perspective, or perspective that offered a sense of comfort. I like to feel that that was kind of divinely placed, meaning I felt a true sense of purpose, like the world stopped in a way, in that it didn't matter past, future, how much money I had in my pockets, bank account, or whatever, how much money I'll ever have, whether or not my success level rises, whatever. At that particular moment, I felt like I was in the right place at the right time, exactly where I needed to be for exactly the purpose I needed to be there. And I felt good about it and felt if that's all I ever accomplished, then that would be okay because I felt like it was really needed. Just to offer true care and concern. This is one of the people I used to round on. I told you that was my favorite part, getting to know your people, everything that's not work related. And so seeing her at the park was a little bit like that. It was like an opportunity to catch up. But that's got to be hard. You retire and it's supposed to be your golden years, and now you're taking care of a grandkid and your kid. But nobody chooses that. This is the way life is. But I remember whatever Bible passages or videos I had read that day or the day before, something was just like, well, regardless, God works it out for good, for the good, somehow, some way. All things will be used for good, which is something I've had to tell myself. You know, some of the behaviors I've had where, and you're just like, mm, he's going to use it for good somehow. Have faith in that. But, all this should come as kind of no surprise. As I've told you guys, if you've been listening, all the time with Buck, been thinking of him a lot lately, thinking of purpose, life. I just interviewed a gentleman today who retired at 40. very successful, but he had like a mental break at 36, had all the money, all the stuff, and it wasn't enough. And I mean, I've always known that money, purpose, a lot of people think, they switch all these things up, but it really depends on how you feel about the world, how you feel about purpose. What's the fucking purpose of being here? Which the wild thing is I think about this in reference to kind of belief systems, and in that maybe depending on your religious beliefs would depend on how you view purpose. I mean, kind of well, let's just say for instance, if I didn't believe in God, what would I think the purpose of life is? If there's nothing more after this, then why why would you even waste time with purpose? I guess. I mean, if you couldn't consider a realm of anything in this life having consequence of anything hereafter, or you didn't believe in anything hereafter, then you would have to kind of logically conclude, like, well, what's the point? What's the purpose? Why are we here? Some people might say for the experience. Well, that's one possibility. I mean, for me, when I think of that, I don't. Hmm, I mean, sure, you'd want to experience pleasure, but if you could skip the pain, you'd want to skip that, right? What's the point? What's the point of the pain? So, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard to explore one without the other, I think, because only if there's something bigger, more, another, then, you know, that idea alone means your life is for a purpose. What I'm reading is God had his purposes mapped out for you before he even designed the earth. So, what's your purpose? Yeah, I think about all the stuff that Buck did, but up until the end, him and I spent a lot of time in fellowship talking about the Bible, talking about God, praying at dinner every night. What was his purpose? They always say the purpose of a Christian is to worship and fellowship, bring other people to Christ, to tell them, to introduce them to the free grace through acceptance. It's like the gravity of it. Think of if you're a parent, Think about how much you love your child. And I know I made some comments like about the Texas floods, and there were some fathers who passed away rescuing their families. But that's kind of how men, fathers think. Um, because you would rather perish than see your family, anything happen to your family, especially your children. And to think that God sent his child to die for us. You know, think about the concept. You would rather die than. It's got to be a hard thing to do. It's got to be a lot of love. If you were to really sit and ingest that and sit on it, think about it, especially if you're a parent. You know, for me, I've never had I think the question of if, but I guess mine has been more of how does my life fit into that, you know? And, but you kind of have to start thinking of, well, what's the purpose of the earth? What's the purpose of everything overall? You know, unless you consider that, then how could you go, well, what's my purpose? But it is kind of bananas to think that, um, man, without even considering the possibility of anything more, it would seem pretty purposeless, I would think, which almost makes the case for believing. I've always believed, so maybe I'm biased. I don't know. Hmm. But it definitely eases things because it's kind of like this thing of like purpose is to love and worship God and be good to other people. It's like in everything you do, it's kind of being purposeful. If you're displaying Christ-like qualities and doing things with love, helping people. You know, the other day I was getting gas and a guy came up to me and he needed some help with some gas and I don't know. He was disheveled quite a bit. I don't know if he was truly needed gas. I didn't see if he came from a car. I don't know. I was in a horrible mental, spiritual place at the moment, at the time. And, but I can remember looking at him and I pulled out my wallet and gave him whatever cash I had. It wasn't a lot. It was only $2. I thought about it for like 1 second. There was something that, I don't know. I just didn't want to be talked to, I guess. It was nothing really about him. I was just kind of isolated. And I felt bad. I felt bad because I felt unapproachable in a way. And I was like, even though I gave him the money, I still was like, I don't think I didn't come off as loving as I could have, as enthusiastic. I had trouble smiling that day. But I also wish I would have had more, especially because I couldn't smile. A part of me was like, I knew I only had $2, and there was a part of me that was like, almost used that as an excuse not to give. Well, this isn't very much. I know it won't get you very far. This is all I got, so I'm not even gonna bother. And almost didn't even pull out my wallet, but I did because I've always had this belief, like when I have cash like that and I see people and or they need, I give it up. I always say God will replace it. And it's funny because I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before I delivered, and it was to a not rich part of town, and I know that they didn't have a ton, and she gave me $2, and she's like, "Oh, I know it's not a lot, but," I was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's the thought, you know. If it comes from the heart, a $2 tip or a $5 tip, whatever. Give what you can. It's not the amount. It's the are you doing it with love because you want to." I could have been more loving, for sure. But that's why I'm a man. Imperfect. That's why you seek religion and purpose. But from the park to the $2, those are your opportunities to serve, to be Christ like. That's your purpose, not just what you do. So there's really kind of purpose everywhere. Mm. Yeah, it's kind of complex and simple all at the same time, mind exploding kind of a thing. When you really think about it, it's like there's purpose all around, there's love all around. And I too admittedly felt like for a couple of weeks I was looking at a lot of the negative stuff, be it social media, news. I mean, the world is crazy. We're on the damn brink of World War III and the world coming to an end, which can stir up a lot of emotion. But I don't know, you read the book and you're like, I mean, it's nothing I can control. I've got nothing to do with Putin or Trump, so and I had that dilemma. It's like, do you even pay attention to stuff like that, the world you live in? Do you just focus on your part and making it better? Do you put your head in the sand and ignore it? Pretend like it doesn't exist? Mm, purpose-driven life is like, well, you shouldn't worry. I mean, if you're a follower of Christ and you believe and you have the faith that you're going to the promised land hereafter, to heaven, then you know when he's coming back, there's nothing we can do to stop it. So that's why you have faith, to know that everything's going to be okay. The world's going to play out how it's going to play out. So it's about your individual walk, your faith. How how is your spiritual bank account? Is it empty? Is it broke? It's like if you have that true faith, you know where you're going. You're not worried about the return. You're not worried about World War III. I mean, yes, you're concerned. Just like I'm concerned. It's the reason I look both ways when I cross the street. I'm not stupid. I don't want to fucking get hit by a car for being dumb. But, you know that anything can happen at any time. Life can change instantly. And where are you spiritually when that happens? If your faith is all tied up and good, then you don't approach things with fear. Discernment, yes, but fear, no. It's kind of the same with the world. I mean, yeah, have a little fear over the things we can't control. That we have nuclear weapons and the power in the hands of power hungry tyrants who want nothing more than control. So, what do you expect? So, yeah, this is it's a person to person thing, but just like making the world a better place, faith, person to person. Introduction, get up on your own. And it's like the idea of a revolution I was thinking about is, I mean, if everybody just had faith and was about doing what's right, what could the government do? They're just like, look, this isn't what this country was founded on. Um, you guys aren't upholding the moral and ethical standards of the founding fathers and principles. You're out and put somebody else back in. But yeah, it's like we've got to get the corruption out because it's corrupted the country morally and spiritually. That's the conclusion I've come to. What we're seeing in the world, the reason the world is a shit show, is that it's moral and spiritual corruption. 100%. Everything driven by capitalism. Money is a tool. I used to think money was bad, and I've started to figure things out about myself. As it comes to, your thought processes around things and money. My dad was a slave to the beeper, and, I could have nice things and had nice cars and stuff growing up and never wanted for anything. But, there was a lot of times I just wanted my dad. I didn't want the stuff. And so I think for me, like I associated money with that. That was kind of like my money story of like, oh, it means this or that. But it's not true. I can still make money and not be a slave to the beeper or work like my dad was. But money is a tool. People are bad. The desire for money and more and more and more. That's the bad part. I mean, people use it to donate, fund research, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. I also learned that, you know, be it through alcohol, whatever, um, as a man, as the father, better understand that you are going to be under attack spiritually because if Satan can capitalize on any weakness of a man, which is so easy for us. I mean, every pair of Lululemons that walks by. Yeah. We are very, you know, part of mine's been mental health, but I think that's just something that's being used in the war. I think it's a good and evil. When you break it down to basics, if evil could get a hold of me, then he changes the lives, the outcomes of my whole circle, my wife, all my daughters. It impacts each of their lives, how they move on, what they think, what they do, the decisions they make based on what they think, all because of something I did or didn't do. Yeah, the devil can get you to be absent, have an affair, any of those things. Split your family apart, make everybody go different ways, make different choices other than what looks like cohesive family. Yeah, pretty deep, but might sound crazy if you're not a spiritual person, if you don't believe in God, if you don't believe in good and evil. But this is me. This is everything I've come to kind of know, interpret, understand. But I'm starting to put these pieces together, and it's like, oh, uh huh. So yeah, I've had a lot of anger lately. But guess what? If that can be used to tear my family apart, evil wins, right? Same kind of with the money thing, that whole faulty thought process of, no, it wasn't just work my dad was into. Who knows what he was off doing, but that was just the way it was. But I understand too. I mean, he was working trying to not be poor because he came from poor. So yeah, he didn't want me to go without the way he had to. But what we really needed was presence. So yeah, I'm learning a lot about myself, about the world. And I think I figured out one of the reasons I have troubles wanting to work for a corporation versus kind of entrepreneurship is that, when you go behind the curtains of most corporations, it's capitalistic. Everything is for the dollar and what people will do for the dollar unknowingly, knowingly put people in harm's way or whatever. When it all becomes about that, when everything's based on that, I know that even if you got into a good company, when you start seeing that, then it affects me. And then I'm going to be like, oh, like, yeah. So it's almost like the best bet is, maybe I could work with, but I don't know if I could work for. So yeah, working on doing my own thing, be it through coaching, writing, consulting on what I don't know. Or, maybe I can be the next Rick Rubin. People just pay me to be around and pay for my insight, my thought process, um, my ability to translate and convey information and be the bridge, perhaps. But I do know that I'm coming to the conclusion that that is kind of my position, my purpose. All things have led me here, given my set of skills and gifts and current position in the world. I guess an orator, a recorder of history. with all the other recorders of history. But it's pretty cool. I like it. And when I think about that, now I think about, oh, well, your job is just to continue improving that. And God's going to work out the rest. You know, just what are we trying to solve here? It's the thing with a podcast. When you come here, you're subconsciously going, what am I solving for you? Maybe it's being stuck. Maybe it's a perspective, knowing you're not alone. In the case of this, it's your relationship with the universe, God, Jesus. I'm Christian, so God and Jesus for me. You know, like I said, all cultures, we all call water something different, but we all know what it is. So you call it whatever it is, whatever you want. But you know, could you even call it anything? You know, do you believe in anything? Because that's going to impact of your view of why we're here. Because I mean, if you believed in nothing, and the only purpose here was pleasure, to be a hedonist, man, I couldn't imagine. I don't think I'd be alive. I'd have, hmm, I don't know. I lived that way for a little while, minus the sexual part, because, yeah, I didn't need any more corruption that way. Hmm. Let me see if I wrote any more notes. That was kind of my thought of the day. What I've been thinking about. Oh, your net worth and your self worth are not the same. Yeah. Oh, perfect example. We'll go back to that example of if evil can destroy my relationship, then he impacts it forever. I think about um, me spending Buck's end of life with him. I was there, not his family. Because something drove them apart, or something kept them from not being there. You know, that's not what I want. If I'm 97 and I'm Buck, I want my family around me. But I'm grateful that we were able to be there for him. And I know Sophie was able to see something, get a lesson from that. And yeah, so I don't know. Understand if you're a man, you're the patriarch leader of your family, you're going to be under attack. He destroys you, he destroys everything around you. And what is your purpose? If there's nothing after here, then what does it matter? That's what I would challenge you. If you're a non believer, tell me why. Reach in the comments, hit my link tree. There's ways to contact me. Tell me why. make an evident case of why you don't believe or what you think the purpose is. If the purpose is not for something greater than now, then what is the purpose? I mean, if you're an inventor or something like that, then I can kind of get it. But all the people in the world, there's got to be a reason. There's got to be a purpose, right? Yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on belief, purpose. Why? Why not? And this is in a way of like a. It's not adversarial. It's I mean, hey, if you know something good about the world that I don't, I want to know, right? Or at least give me your case. What if I'm missing my whole purpose because of my belief system? But yeah, give it some thought. Hit me up. You can contact me via the link tree in the bio of any profiles I have. So you can DM me, message me on Facebook Messenger. But yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts. I'd like to explore it. I'd like to spark up a conversation around it, if you know what I mean. Ay, ay, ay. But yeah, I want to enjoy life. I want to add value. I get that pain is a little piece of it. That's how we know pleasure. Without bad, it'd be hard to know good. But I believe there's way more than just existing. But I want to know your thoughts. So, like I said, hit me up. Hit me up. Hit me up. However, we're going to have to call it quits because my wife is going on a cruise for her birthday and she won't be here. So we're going to celebrate it tonight. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope it gave you food for thought. I'm going to go spend some time with my family. I suggest you do the same. And when you're come up with an answer and you're ready to have a discussion on purpose, the hereafter, then I want to hear from you. But until then, go out and be the person that you would want to meet.
Asteroid of fear.